So thank you everyone for joining us today. We're doing this kind of casual remote AMA session. This session is going to be in person to virtual user groups, how to keep building community. I know for a lot of us community managers, we're going from in-person user group type events to virtual very quickly. And there are a lot of questions on how to do it kind of the best way, the right way. So I got some amazing panelists to kind of help me answer all of your questions. I also have my colleague Hollis that she's sharing the board right now. We're on a Miro board, and we're gonna just kind of, she's gonna do visual note taking on Miro. So any of the questions that you have, feel free to, yeah, she's doing, hi everyone. Feel free to turn off your mics and ask us questions that way. So we can just have, like I said, a casual conversation, or you can use the chat feature below in Zoom to ask any of your questions and we'll definitely get to them. So I wanna start with some introductions. So I'll go first. My name is Brittany and I am the community events manager here at Miro. I'm like repping the shirt mainly because I haven't changed out of sweatpants in a few days. Forgive me. I've been with Miro for 3 years now, and almost 3 years, I would say. And I've kind of been tasked with doing kind of all things Miro community. And this time for us, the virtual events time, it's super interesting for us because we've already been doing virtual events before this, like virtual user groups before everything's happened. So I feel like we're in a pretty good space to share our knowledge. Yeah, and I'm excited to be with all of you. So then next we have Danielle. Danielle, I will.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I love this whiteboard. I haven't seen it in action yet, so this is so cool. I currently work at Lyft. I'm the senior manager of our driver community. Our driver community is made up of a council. We call it the Driver Advisory Council, and I have a very opinionated dog that might chime in at some point, so just sorry about that. So the council, we have 40 councils in markets made up of 3 to 7 drivers, and they'll hold meetups and events and be sort of a listening post for us, for drivers in their communities, what's trending, what's coming up, share stories, share experiences, share pain points, and escalate that to us, my team, and then my team will talk with other leadership decision makers internally to make sure we're supporting drivers. Before Lyft, I worked at Airbnb doing a lot of the operations around community work. I was a consultant for years, and before that I worked at BirkBox as a founding member there, building up community of animal rescuers and then also our customer support team. Before that, how I got started in all of this, I'm doing it backwards. I usually do it the other way. I'm going backwards. But how I got started in community work was at Etsy. I was one of the first employees there and built the education team, which worked under the community team, worked super closely with Etsy forums, Etsy teams, which I'm sure will come up a lot here. Oh, Eugene has something to say. Everything community there. Okay, we're going to stop there because this is happening.
Thank you, Danielle. And then we're gonna go to Kat. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Perfect. Well, thanks for the intro, Danielle, and thanks again for the invite, Brittany. As Brittany had mentioned, my name is Kat Martinez, and I am one of our user group coordinators here at Alteryx. For myself, I oversee over 40 user groups here at Alteryx that are all throughout the Americas. We have 40 user groups that I oversee in Canada, the United States, and the region that we're trying to grow soon is Latin America. Within those 40 regions, just like Danielle had mentioned, we have typically 3 to 5 customer leaders that are leading these user groups and are helping put together these in-person meetups so that other people around their regions and their local cities can connect with other Alteryx user group members, as well as learn best practices from each other's. And typically with these leaders, we have them put together these in-person meetups every quarter. So really my role is to help make sure that these in-person meetups, that these are being placed on our calendar. I'm helping the leaders through resources, helping find speakers, venue at times, and really just making sure that these meetings are taking place. So it's been an interesting time for us. We're kind of in uncharted territories, but over here at Alteryx, we have been able to work out with our leaders to go into a virtual meetings. And so far, the ones that we've been hosting have been pretty successful. So excited to share and even learn more from Danielle as well.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing. So like I said, I wanted to open up to the attendees here. Like, just unmute if you have any questions. This is full on AMA style. If you're kind of nervous to ask the question, there have been some questions asked to me just personally and like in groups that I'm in, so I can start us off, but I'm opening it up to all of you. Yeah. All right. So the first question that I've heard, how do you handle user group leaders who are maybe afraid to go virtual?
Yeah, I think for user group leaders, they're sometimes afraid because they are afraid that the local attendees won't really participate in a virtual meeting. And that's understandable. A lot of our user groups really find the value in those in-person networking. Most of the time they find that the in-person networking is what they are missing out on. So we try to make sure that if a leader is a little hesitant in going virtual, we are providing them the full virtual support. So as a user group coordinator, I'm on the virtual meetings with them as a moderator, making sure that all the tech setup is there and giving them that support that although we're going virtual, I'm still here to help you. And we're still gonna make this very interactive and engaging for the attendees that are on there. So I try to make sure that reassure them going into the virtual meeting. We even have some questions prepared and just make sure that just like an in-person meeting, we prepare for what could happen. We do the very same and do dry runs as well so that they could get familiar with the tech stack that we're using. Over here at Alteryx, we have been using WebEx for our virtual meetings. So I've scheduled dry runs with them, with the speakers as well, so that they're familiar, they feel a little bit more comfortable. And we also do kind of a dry run of the questions and how the conversation will flow. I think after the dry runs and seeing the speakers and kind of giving them some pointers, they felt much more comfortable going into it. And we've seen some successful meetups so far virtually.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. You said that you attend the virtual events, right? So you're dealing with like 40 different chapters. Do you ever get kind of, I don't know, what happens if there are multiple events happening in a day? Is this like something you deal with, or do you have like a calendar? How do you deal with that?
No, it's a good question. So when this was all emerging, the situation of needing to go from in-person to virtual, luckily I had already more than half of my 40 chapters meet up in January and February. So March, I had a handful of them that were in the bucket of either postponing or going virtual. So out of those 10, we had a few of them do virtual. So luckily I didn't have that situation yet where people were going to be needing my assistance full-time virtually during the same time as another user group. But I did predict that already being a situation for next quarter. So what we actually proposed was doing regional user groups. So now that I'm overseeing all of these user groups and I'm trying to be their full-time support online, what I've proposed to our user group leaders is actually doing regional user groups. So one in North America, West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, Brazil, because they are gonna want to have one in Portuguese. So with these regional user groups, I've actually pulled people from these various user groups throughout these cities in their region, and I'm still able to support them virtually. And this is all on my calendar as well, while coordinating with a few handful of those leaders within my 40 chapters. So instead of having 40 individual local virtual meetings, I've actually condensed it down to 8 user group meetings that I'm going to be focusing full-time this quarter. So that's how I kind of predicted and handled that situation, because yes, as much as I want to support them full time, I can't be there for all 40. So we're going with the regional approach. And so far it's been one that our executives have liked, and we're going to be moving forward with it. So if anyone who's on the line, if you guys want to hop on to any of those that you see through my LinkedIn or on social post of Alteryx, you are more than welcome to hop on to those virtually as well to see what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Danielle, do you have
Yeah,
any
I just
thoughts
want,
on
my only thing to add, I think this is great. This is exactly what I'm doing right now with our user groups who want to have virtual office hours, coffee chats, is we'll be in the room, we're walking them through, we're providing them with like what questions we think Lyft drivers might have right now. As you can imagine, it's pretty stressful for them to hold these, but they want to hold them, and they have come to us and told us they want to hold them and have asked us how we can facilitate this. So one thing I'm doing right now is doing a lot of listening and seeing how people want to virtually activate, and then leaning into that and supporting them versus telling them how they're going to participate, and testing it out and seeing if it works before we roll it out at scale. So that's one thing we're doing. The other thing is I just moved all of our community leaders to Slack. So, you know, if you have a lot of resistance to virtual meetups, you can think of other alternatives, whether it's like there's a cool tool out there called Video Ask. So that's not reliant on everyone logging in at the same time. Or Slack could be an interesting thing to test out right now. It's been really, really helpful for us. So there's a lot of conversations happening that we're able to listen in on, like we check every channel a few times a day and then share internally. So it's been an invaluable tool for us right now.
Thank you. I'll give my input on this. I'm dealing with a group of people that aren't afraid to go virtual. Just Miro, the tool itself, is a tool to kind of let you know that you don't have to be in a physical workspace to kind of collaborate and meet with people. So before everything happened, we actually started with virtual user groups, VMUGs, and we are doing kind of what you're doing right now. We're doing regional, so we have North America and then we have Europe, and they've been very successful. We're actually having one on Wednesday and then one on Thursday. And those are like easy to produce and everything. Before everything started, we were trying to branch and go to in-person user groups, and we like had San Francisco planned, and I went to Amsterdam for 48 hours to do that one, and then everything halted. So now I'm in a place where because this won't last forever, this situation that we're in, but how do I grow these user groups, like in-person user groups in San Francisco, in Austin, because we're so new. So I'm trying to figure that out right now. Like, do I have Austin user groups that are done virtually, but still everybody can join, or kind of what do I do? So I'd love anybody's input there, but I'll get to the question that we have in Zoom just so we can try to get questions. We have, what suggestions would you recommend for user groups who have never met, first time meeting together?
I love it. I just wrote down some instructions. I can tell you what is on my mind right now. So have a leader, whether that's you or your community leader. I always say set the goals of the meeting that you have together and agree on them. Say what you think the goals of this meeting should be. Do we all agree? Is there anything to add? And then set the sort of guidelines of how we're collaborating and discussing together. So I like to share our Lyft community guidelines again. And then I'll say, here are Lyft community guidelines. For example, in this space, in this discussion, here's how you can be helpful. Here's what safety means. Like, we're probably talking more about psychological safety, so everyone feels comfortable discussing whatever's on their mind in a safe space. So laying those guidelines and tying it back to your community guidelines as well is a good thing to do. That makes people feel a little safer. I think psychological safety for me is a big one to think about. And then I like to do an icebreaker or something that allows each person in the meeting to contribute in a really safe, structured way where they don't have to think too much. They don't have to stress about it. I know you've probably been in those meetings where you're put on the spot and your like heart is beating. Like, what am I gonna respond to this? I would not start with that. I would start with like, what's your name? Where are you? What's one word for how your morning was so far? The other thing I came up with is like, everyone run and go grab a piece of paper and a pen. Come back and just draw the emoji that best represents your last 24 hours. Like something that everyone can do that's like low risk. Maybe it pushes them out of their comfort zone a little bit, but it's a way to get them to know each other.
Awesome. That's cool. Kat, what about you?
I love that. I love the kind of, setting the guidelines already. I think for some user groups that I've been working with since January, February that wanted to meet in Q2, that's the conversation we're having now. Those leaders were preparing the agendas, they were selecting venues already, and they wanted to meet in April or May. So with all this going on, we're still wanting to have them meet because I don't want to eliminate the work that they've done previously. So I've had them adapt their agenda, but make it more icebreaker style. And I've also prefaced that this could be a great way to ease people into what to expect for an in-person meeting, but just condensed in an hour virtual meeting here. So for any of my user groups that are still wanting to meet and they're very new, I still have the same 3 to 5 leaders selected. I go over, what are the expectations, just like Danielle mentioned, and just seeing what are some icebreakers that we could pull for this virtual meeting. I love the idea of, dropping an emoji for how you felt that hour. I think ones that we've seen are really seeing, icebreakers, what's your favorite tool on the Alteryx designer canvas. So it's very lighthearted, keep it, engaging, but make sure that it's not overwhelming for people, especially if this is going to be their first user group meeting in general. And for it to be a virtual meeting, I try to make sure that our leaders kind of tease it up as saying, hey, you guys, here's a preview of what to expect in person, but just in an hour setting. So I think I still try to keep it very lighthearted. I still encourage the meeting virtually, but I also respect the decision of our leaders that are wanting to wait until they're ready to meet in person. Again, these are run by our customers. So if our customer doesn't feel that they will get the most out of their first meeting virtually, then I try to work with them to wait until the situation is cleared out and hopefully we can get the meeting in person. But in the meanwhile, if they're not open to meeting virtually for the first time for their user group, I try to encourage engagement in our online user group pages. For those of you that haven't checked out the Alteryx community yet, our community has user group pages individualized per city. So every city that has a user group has their individual page, and we encourage engagement by our leaders. It could be posting an introduction of saying, hey, this is Gary from the Cleveland user group. This is what I do. I'm the leader here. And then he makes an introduction post for some of the other members to start introducing themselves. So we've made some alternatives for user groups like that, but overall, we just want to make sure that we're encouraging our leaders to engage with the members, whether it's through a virtual meeting for the first time or through engagement on our community pages that we built out for them.
Yeah, I love that. We have done similar things with our virtual user groups. What I do is I share a Miro board with them about 3 to 4 days before the event, where they have editing access, and we have an icebreaker there. So I'll usually put I go to all of these events, and I will add something on the icebreaker section myself. So it's not like they're not just going into an empty board, because that's kind of overwhelming for people. And then I also created sections on the board where it's like, start the conversation early, and then I'll drop in questions or comments so people can already feel like they're a part of the group before the actual event, which is nice. And then, like you said, Kat, we have our online community, and we're always trying to drive that conversation to the online community. So we want to build communities, not just like in person, but also virtually and on our online community. And it's worked out worked
I
out.
think this is a great opportunity for us, Danielle, Brittany, all of us working on these offline. This is always the best opportunity to bridge the offline and online community. I know some people hate that term, but I've seen this opportunity to better enhance that kind of bridge that we see existing in some communities right now. So I love that you're kind of doing the similar steps as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So we touched on this a little bit, but we have a question. We'll do that. In terms of tooling, has anyone tried Zoom breakout group features to foster engagement? For example, smaller group discussions or other tools, Toasty for icebreakers. What's our technology stack?
I love Zoom breakout groups. I haven't tested anything else. I'd love to hear if anyone has tested. Even if you're not on the panel, if you've tested this stuff, I'd love to try Toasty or there's an icebreaker one just called Icebreaker.
Yeah.
But I haven't tested them out because our group is sometimes a little hard to adopt new tech. So even if it's simple, it's hard for us. So anything integrated with Zoom is what I'm using right now, or Google Hangouts. I did just try the new Hangout app. If anyone's tried it, what's it called? Home Party? Maybe it's a little too fun for what we're talking about, but if you want to have like a casual kind of hangout, like maybe your users want to just share their pet photos on Friday or something, this House Party app is really cool. Really There's games in here too in the app.
Ooh.
Oh,
I'll have to try that.
Yeah. For us, no, I'm definitely curious for some of the attendees. If you guys have used these, because right now we're currently, as I mentioned, when this situation came about, or in mid-March, where we had to move from in-person to virtual, we were using what our company was already using internally, which was WebEx. Very quickly, we saw that WebEx wasn't the ideal platform for us, so we are currently looking for one that could be the best fit for us. And these are some of the ones that I've seen that have been really great winners. I think Icebreaker was the one that really caught my attention for those kind of small breakups that we usually see in person for our user groups already. And that's the one thing I think makes our user group leaders hesitant in going virtual, is the engagement piece isn't there. Yeah. And I'm curious if anyone else has used those icebreakers like Toasty, just wanting to see what it was and if it kind of helped, not in a way replace, but sort of substitute that engagement. I'd love to hear from everyone. Oh, looks like videos was really fun. Oh, fun. Cool. Have to check it out.
Yeah, we'll have to check out Icebreaker. We've been using Zoom. We haven't been doing the breakout rooms because we just haven't been that large enough to get there. And our group they like just being all together, like in one area. So we've been using Zoom. Of course, we've been using Miro. So it's been working just like this, except they have editing access. So it's really cool because you get to see the cursors move around. So you still get that engagement piece, which is awesome. And then we've just been doing little icebreakers like on the Miro board. We're gonna try out one where we can add videos of kind of show us your favorite like cat video or dog video. I've been needing that kind of stuff for the past week, that kind of happy, fun, cat video. So anything that we can add to Miro, we've been kind of doing that. So, but I definitely want to try out icebreakers. Our icebreaker. I've heard that a lot, especially in our CMX group. Thank you for that question. Let me go next. Have you seen any difference in terms of promos and registration timing for virtual events versus in-person ones? For example, since virtual ones have lower entry barriers, the window for communications could be shorter with more people signing up last minute. Kat, I know you've had a good answer for this.
For the recent ones that we've had virtual, we had to double up on our communication because they were scheduled in person and then we switched them to virtual. So that type of communication did have to take place immediately. So we doubled up on letting people know that, hey, we've postponed in person, we've switched it to virtual. But in regards to the virtual ones we're doing right now that were planned originally as virtual, we've seen that 2 weeks in advance was a great window for us. We've been leveraging our social media to let people know that, you know, if you're wanting to dial in from the comfort of your own home or office, feel free to join us for these virtual meetings. And we don't target it so much for just the local cities. We invite kind of the bigger region. So like you were mentioning Austin, we have a user group out there, and we've also asked that user group if they feel comfortable inviting other areas around them that have user groups like Houston, Dallas. So we've tried to do a little bit of a higher reach. What we've also seen is that with our virtual meetings as of right now, they've been pretty good on attendance. My last one, it had about, you know, an 80%, we had about 80% of the people that registered actually attend, which typically doesn't happen for us for in-person. It's usually half of the drop-off were there. So we're excited to see what it'll look like for our regional ones. For our regional ones, we'll most likely still keep that cadence and let people know with the WebEx or whatever conferencing tool we'll be using at that time that this is where you register, have your audio checked, and here's the tool that we'll be using. And I kind of like what you guys did for this webinar, was letting people know that you could download Zoom beforehand. And that's the type of communication we're doing as well, to let people know that this is the tool, download it here if you don't have it. But we're also letting people know that should there be any concerns about their firewall or that tool that we're using to conference this virtual meeting isn't available because of any blocks, that we'll be recording it and posting it on our user group page as well. So within that promo, we're doing email, social, letting people know that this is the virtual meeting. And if they do miss it, we're going to provide the recording afterwards.
Awesome. Danielle, what do you think? Have you seen any difference in like promo registration time? Kat said like 2 weeks communication. I've seen the same for ours. You don't need, it's just like easy to churn out and promote.
I would say, so even internally, I've had people come to me and ask if they can meet with our DAC members. So have Lyft team members have a virtual meeting with our DAC members. And for me, urgency right now is, and people want to feel like they have a place to go. So I'll set up a meeting in 24 hours. And people are down, and I have a 100% RSVP and 100% attendance rate right now. So people got time on their hands and they want to connect, so make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that. I'll have to try. I've seen some groups do 24. I've been getting 24-hour notifications of like, hey, we've got this meeting going on, this user group, join. And because of the amount of time that I do have on my hands, and I'm just like trying to consume and connect with people, I've been like, yeah, I'll be there. Like, there's no heavy lift. I don't have to drive anywhere. I don't have to, you know, and I just want to connect with people. So yeah, I can see why it doesn't take that much time. Kat, so you've been posting the videos, you've been recording the videos, and you've been posting them on the user group pages. Have you seen like a pretty good response from the recorded videos?
So we're right now in the works of editing some of them. So some of the folks that were on our virtual meetings just recently, we try to send over a legal document saying, hey, just to make sure that with anything that they presented, because some of them do present use cases, we make sure that if they're signed off and ready to go, we'll post it. So that's something we're holding off of for right now because of that document. But for right now, almost every person that attended our virtual meetings was asking for recordings. So we've seen a pretty good response from our attendees as well as people that weren't able to attend, because I've had follow-up emails saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I couldn't dial in, or I just missed the meeting. Like, please let me know when the recording is posted. So I think even with the recordings and these virtual meetings, our leaders are even open to hosting more of these. So some have even mentioned wanting to do them monthly. So I don't know, that's a kind of a question I have for you guys, Danielle and Brittany. Have you guys seen the kind of the turnaround of these meetings happening more often in comparison to the in-person ones that you were hosting prior?
Yes, I can say for our North America and Europe, we started hosting them monthly. For Europe right now, I'm like, hey, can we promote for the one happening this week? And they're like, yeah, we already have someone in mind for next month. Just because we just talked about the amount of communication you need to promote it, 2 weeks. People are like ready and willing to share. So yeah, monthly has been easy. And I know for like just our content team and just content in general, having these recorded, we're putting them on our YouTube channel. We're seeing the views like after the event. And it's just a great way, because we're using Miro, the product, in these events. It's a great way to show off our product, and people are getting like firsthand, like, oh, this is how I use it. And we also share these videos to future user group leaders and also people that are wanting to present. They're like, what do I present on? What works? What doesn't work? And it's so easy for me and my team to just send the link to our recorded videos and like, oh, okay, I know what to do, and making the process that much easier.
That's awesome. And I think for right now, more than ever, this is definitely a time where we're seeing that even our own internal associates, we've actually seen more attendance from them through these virtual meetings in comparison to them having to drive to an in-person meeting. So it's even helping out, like you mentioned, our own internal associates become more familiar with user groups, with what our community offline and now online are, what they're doing. So that's what we've seen as well, is that internally we've seen a lot more of our own our own associates here at Alteryx attending these virtual ones, and that's kind of even made our leaders more excited because they love having our own associates hop on and seeing what they're doing, and they just get excited when they see Alteryx people online as well, seeing all the work that they're putting in for these virtual meetings. Have you guys seen the same as well? It seems like Brittany, you did with sharing the content here.
Yeah, our users, and probably it's the same like you were saying, our users love to hear from anyone from Miro, if they're just kind of sitting in the audience or joining in. Our user groups for North America, we actually have someone from Miro presenting during the user group. So there'll be like a 10-minute presentation from Miro and just like how they're using Miro internally, and then we'll have like the main presentation, and our users just love it because they're like, oh, you care, you know what's going on, this is awesome. And it helps my job, definitely. Danielle, have you just seen that as well?
Yeah, and one thing that I'm also doing internally, so we'll have these roundtables or virtual discussions with our community leaders. And what I've done is clip together a TLDR version to share internally with leadership. Someone might not watch the whole thing, but I'm just hopping into, what is that, iMovie, and putting a few clips together. And that's getting a lot of attention internally.
That's great. That's awesome.
I was gonna say, I may have to take that tidbit over. I love that we're able to showcase that internally and even to your higher ups, what's going on, and, keeping involved, that this is still something we're doing here in light of situations that are in light of the situation now. And it looks like we had a question here on the chat from Natalie next.
What are, if any, the bottlenecks to sourcing new event leaders, sparking event interest, especially now? How have you combated them?
When it comes over here to Alteryx, we've actually haven't had this situation about having a bottleneck about sourcing new event leaders. Our leaders usually are applying consistently about wanting a new user group in their area. So we have a Survey Monkey, and we kind of put a stop on reviewing that Survey Monkey every day or every week because of the amount of influx we were getting. We moved to an application process so that we could have a better hold and a pipeline for this quarter to come. As for sparking the event interest around the virtual meetings, we've actually just really made it very lighthearted and just letting people know that they could join us, you know, wherever they are. That we are making sure that all of our members are safe, our leaders are safe, as well as our host. And people are still pretty keen on wanting to join us virtually here. It may just be the sense of community that they're wanting to see right now, because now more than ever, you're seeing that people are in their homes, they're not going to their office, they're wanting some sort of interaction and engagement with others. So sparking that interest hasn't been too difficult for us over here, because I think of what is going on right now, that people do want that engagement. They do want to talk to other people as they're confined in their own homes, or, you know, still needing to do some of the work that they're doing now virtually here. But I'm curious if Danielle and Brittany, if you guys had some of these bottlenecks and what you've done to overcome. I'd love to hear from you guys as well.
I haven't had any bottlenecks, but our user group, our user community, event community, it's so new that we don't have an application out for, like, if you want to, you know, run your own user groups now. We were just about to start that when, you know, everything happened and just things stopped. So we're currently working on building that infrastructure to have those applications. But within that infrastructure, I want to also give every user group leader, when we onboard them, like, there will be an option for you to either do this in person or virtually. I want to, like, make that an option for them. Maybe, you know, we'll ask that they do an event once a quarter, but maybe we'll say one event that you do, you know, in the year can be a virtual event. Like, why not? So I'm definitely thinking about something like that.
Yeah, just thinking back to one trick that I used to do at Etsy when we had Etsy teams, was every month we'd put up a blog post and highlight the top events that Etsy teams did that month. It was really not very exciting content. No one really wanted to read it. It was one of the lowest performing blog posts. Why did we continue to do it every month? Is because these leaders just wanted some sort of acknowledgement. They were really excited to see their name in lights. So finding a way to escalate or elevate those stories is really helpful in keeping people motivated to continue on.
I love that. Elevating their stories. Yeah, we definitely need to do a lot of that, whether it's in person or virtual, because, you know, they're our user group leaders. They're doing so much for us, and so we need to definitely think about them and, you know, put them front and center, because if they're not feeling appreciated, then they're going to stop, and then there's not going to be a bottleneck. We're just not going to have anything go on. So yeah, I love that.
No, completely agree. I mean, for most of my user group leaders, these are volunteers. This isn't their full-time job. They're doing this out of the kindness of their heart and because they truly love, you know, Alteryx and what it's done for them. So they want to share that kind of experience and enlighten other people in their area. So we try to follow the same, where we elevate our user group leaders. And similar to what you were doing, Danielle, we sometimes do community highlights, where it's a blog post about what was the big highlight for each month. And we always make it a point to put in a user group meeting or a user group, you know, event. And sometimes it could be because this user group partnered with a nonprofit and they did, you know, the data analysis recently for that. So I think, you know, it may not be our highest seen blog post on our community, our online one, but to your point, it's that recognition. And sometimes it's those points that make it more valuable for that leader, because they are being recognized for their work. It's volunteer work, but they are being recognized, and it's the little things that we can do for them during this time.
Absolutely. This is great. Well, we have time for one more question. I want to kind of open it up to our audience if we want. No one? Well, I'll ask the fun question. We've already touched on icebreakers, but if we have any more ideas for icebreakers, I know this is a big question that has come up. Like, how do you, because it's a virtual event, like how do you keep that engagement up and people, where it's not just a glorified webinar where you have that kind of connection? So how do you keep the engagement up in your virtual user groups?
What I would like to test out for these regional ones to keep the engagement up. Right now, what we've seen is that we are muting everyone upon entry when they're entering these webinars. So it's very hard to see who has, through their webcams, who has a question, who wants to place a comment. In our regional meetings, what I'm hoping to do is asking a question when people are registering. So the agenda is all finalized, they're seeing what's going to be on there and having them ask that question that they would like to have answered. That helps us kind of organize the conversation during our meeting. And B, it's also allowing the attendee, if they do attend, that yes, your question was answered, you're being heard, and we hope that this is helping you out and that you get something out of this virtual meeting. So if we don't have time for those icebreakers, or we don't have time to break up into mini sections because we're doing only an hour rather than our average 2-hour meetings in person, we're hoping that by having people answer or ask a question during the registration process, that we're able to get more engagement and more thought-provoking conversations from the speakers and our leaders. And in return, hopefully getting more engagement going on in the chat as well. But that's one of the ways that we're trying to overcome the barriers right now through the virtual settings that we're handling here.
More engagement in chat is great because it can be really hard to time, like when you're gonna pop in and say something. So if you have someone moderating and then there's some chat engagement, you could even say, oh, Natalie, tell me more. What bottlenecks are you facing? Like encouraging other people to chime in. But there's a fine line to that, because sometimes I do, like, there are some communities where I want to listen in and I'm not quite ready to participate. So making sure those introverts who don't want to participate, they're still getting a lot out of attending. I was going to say something else. Oh, this is from someone else. They said to think of some hand motions, like, I agree with you. Like, if you don't want to chime in and say something, what is a hand motion you can give to say, I agree, or I have a question? I second that. What were the other ones? Anyone else have hand motion? I just thought that was so clever.
Done. This is like, I agree. There's in chat, Zoom also has done the update with reactions. I'll have to check that out. Zoom is like coming out with a lot of stuff right now. So
they are. I've seen some other webinar tools that have kind of that raise hand. So attendees, they could raise their hand if they agree with the speaker or if they just have a question. So I think that's awesome, Danielle, that you're setting up the kind of engagement rules of, hey, everyone, like, let us know by motioning or doing all of this, just making sure that people are still heard and they're being recognized. And I also make sure that our leaders just share their webcams and share kind of their face as well. Because again, some people may not be comfortable. We don't require all of our attendees to share their webcam, but we highly encourage our leaders to do that so that they could have kind of a name to the face. And it's not just like you're looking at a screen and you don't know who's talking. So that's another form of engagement we've seen for our leaders to help it not just seem like a glorified webinar.
Yeah, same. All right, well, this has been a really great discussion. I hope everyone has found it valuable. I know I have. I'm glad that Hollis has been here writing the notes, because I'm gonna go back and, make our user group a little bit better. We are going to be, this is recorded. We're gonna be sharing this recording on the event site, and we're also gonna be sharing a link to this board that has the notes on the event site as well. So the event site that you use to sign up, we'll be sharing that, and I'll be sending a follow-up email with this as well.
Just to chime in here, I'm Hollis, by the way. I've been doing the notes. This board is actually an entire wiki. So we have last week's AMA, and then we have crowdsourced remote work resources down here for everybody. So not just on user groups, but so you all will have access to this to just access blogs and everything that people have contributed.
Yeah. Thank you, Hollis. Well, I want to say thank you so much to Kat and Danielle. You ladies have been great. I know I just came up with this and I was like, can we do it? And you were first with like the hand raise. So thank you so much. I've learned a lot from you guys just knowing you the short time. And I want to thank everybody else for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone.